and you, the most important member of our crew, on the Super Text line,
Hey,
615.
hey, Chris.
Hey.
Sorry, Johnny B had the wrong thing potted up, so now you are just now coming through to the air. So now your show has begun officially.
Really? Mac?
We're starting off hot.
We're rolling in hot. Okay, let me start again. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 9:06. Chris Hand broadcasting live from Paul Winkler Inc. in Goodlettsville. We are hanging out here all day for the show. 3050 Business Park Circle, Unit 503 in Goodlettsville. If you need the address for your GPS, that's 3050 Business Park Circle, Unit 503 in Goodlettsville. You're welcome to come by, say hello to us, hang out. Paul has all these goodie bags for anybody that stops by, so you can get a nice gift. You can say hello, maybe even jump on the air with me if you have something important to say. We would love to talk to you, and Paul can help you with all your investment needs. Excuse me. We are so excited to be here today. Mac Morey is producing in the studio. You call it producing, but he didn't even have me on the air.
We got there.
And a little inside baseball. About 2 minutes before we go on air, Mac makes me download Google Chrome.
Make you.
You did. You made me download Google Chrome. So Mac's been messing up all morning, but not as bad as the presidential hopefuls messed up last night on the debate stage. I don't know if you watched this. I had to. I'm a glutton for punishment. I want to know your thoughts on the second GOP debate at 615-737-9986. Feel free to call in and sound off. As far as power rankings go, it was just a disgusting bleep show. Fox did a terrible job. Fox is at the absolute bottom of the power rankings as far as the GOP debate goes. The moderators, it was so tough to understand these questions. I understand that they had thick accents and they're from Univision, but they sounded just like left-leaning, just shock jocks, bringing up all sorts of things that just didn't really affect anything. And you couldn't understand a lot of the questions. The woman from Univision, who was the moderator, my captions on my TV couldn't even keep up with her and her accent. And I pay attention to a lot of this stuff. It was difficult for me to understand what she was talking about. Simple words were being mispronounced, like mental health, where it was just like, what is she saying? What is she asking? And I feel like that really caused a delay and a hang-up, not just for us watching the debate, but also for the guys on the debate stage trying to understand what question they were going to ask. Luckily, they're all classic Republicans, and none of them were going to answer the questions anyway. It seemed like every Republican up there would give about 4 sentences on the question that was asked, and then pivot to something that they had pre-planned, which just drove me up a wall. I'm so tired of the politician speak, and I just want something real. Just answer the question, tell me what you're thinking, and let's move on. They don't do that. They give you 3 to 4 sentences, no matter what the question is, and then they pivot to a pre-planned, pre-written statement. And it's awful. It's awful. And they all did it. But as far as power rankings go, for who I thought won, Trump came in first. Trump won. I mean, he proved just completely why he's light years ahead of all these people. Vivek, as much as I'm out on Vivek, I thought that he was honestly the standout on the stage last night. After that, I thought it was Burgum. I thought Burgum was a beast. He made the most of every opportunity that he had on that camera to speak about what he would do. He was aggressive. You walked away wanting to know more about Burgum than before. After Burgum, I had DeSantis. Then I had a massive gap, and then Pence, Scott, Christie. Then another massive gap in Haley. Nikki Haley, I don't know, man. I don't know about her. My wife looked at me at one point and said, she has boss mom hair. Boss mom hair. That was the nicest thing I've ever heard anybody say about Nikki Haley. In fact, if I get one of those texts asking me to donate $1 to her campaign, I'm going to say no, but you have boss mom hair.
Not this time, but hey, way to go in the boss mom hair.
Hard pass, but we love your hair. But from the jump, I just Tim Scott lost me. Tim Scott gets the first question of the night. And they bring up his comment where he alluded to Reagan. I mean, they're in the Ronald Reagan Library. Of course this was going to come up. I didn't know it was going to come up as quickly as it did. But they bring up his comment about firing the UAW workers. And he said, no, I wouldn't fire them. And then he pivots to Joe Biden. And then he says, Joe shouldn't be on the picket line. He should be on the border and talking about fentanyl. And he pivots to that. And then he goes just full politician speak. And he never really addressed the strike. He never really addressed his comments. And that's one of the things that it just drives me mad. Tim Scott, as much as I think he's good at what he does, and he probably can do a lot of good things in office, he talks like such a classic politician that, like, you lost me. I mean, even when he got another question, his second question of the night, he had second chance to speak. It was more politician speak from Tim Scott. He goes, when I'm the next president... And it's like, okay, yep, when you're the next president, got it. Not going to happen, but okay. And then my wife looked at me, she goes, he's going to bring up that he was raised in a single-parent home again, isn't he? And I was like, I bet you he is. No kidding, 30 seconds later, I was raised in a single-parent household. Anybody that's watching the second debate watched the first debate, and he brought up being raised in a single-parent household 3 times in the first debate. We know, Tim. We get it. Like... Just stop. No, nobody cares about how you were brought up. Talk about what you're going to do in the future. You've already told us that. We've now heard 4 times from you on the debate stage that you were raised in a single-parent home. I'm sorry about your childhood trauma, but why does Tim Scott keep bringing that up? It was absolutely frustrating to me anytime Tim just talks like a politician. Because I think he has good things to say, but we lose him when he goes, as your next president, I'm going to restore the American dream. It's like, maybe that would have worked in like 94. Maybe 98. You know, like that's it feels like it's faker than Mitt Romney when he talks like a politician. And I was out on Tim Scott. Again, Doug Burgum, the way he stepped into that debate stage by shouting and bringing up the mining in China and what China is doing in Indonesia and Africa, and the real reason that we need less workers, the real reason there's a strike is because we need less workers to make an electric vehicle. I mean, I was impressed with Burgum. I really was. He brought hustle. I'm glad North Dakota has him. But let's be honest, he would get eaten alive by the demons in D.C. He would absolutely be lunch for them. We don't need the wholesome common sense values. We need a warrior, and I'm not sure Burgum is that warrior. I made the comment yesterday that what is this debate for? Is it for who's going to be the VP? And I said no. I mean, this is a trash squad of candidates. I don't think any of them could be VP. But after watching Doug Burgum last night, I think he could be VP. I don't think he could be VP for a guy like Trump, but in a milquetoast kind of way for a guy like DeSantis, I think he could be VP. I think he gives off Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney vibes as far as energy, but I think his policies are much different. And I don't know. I'd like to see more from Doug Burgum. Chris Christie killed me. He was entertaining, but like not in the way I was hoping for. It was more like cringeworthy entertainment. I do have a clip. Mac, if you'll pull up the clip of Chris Christie, it's the last one I sent you. He says he needs to give he gives Trump a new nickname, and this is what that sounded like.
People feel threatened there, and we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight. Not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
Oh, beast mode. Even Dana Perino's like, all right.
Okay.
All right. Like, you know he's like prepping for this. He's like, I got him with that Donald Duck line. And no, sir, you don't. It was cringeworthy at best. He thought it was going to be a mic drop moment, but it was really just the night getting away from him. Chris Christie just fell hard with that line. And no, Donald Trump wasn't actually working. I wasn't watching. He was out working. He was actually speaking in Michigan to picketing UAW workers. And this is what Trump sounded like. Instead of being at the debate, he was saying things like this.
And if we can afford to send hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, then we can afford to have an auto industry that pays our workers a good living wage and keeps our workers working.
So while Chris Christie is dropping lame lines like Donald Duck, Trump is in Michigan trying to win over voters with based messaging like hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. If we can do that, well, then we can pay our workers a good living wage. And Chris Christie, I mean, that wasn't his only flub of the night, the Donald Duck line. He also said he brought up the same line from the first debate, which I don't understand why these guys keep recycling lines from the first debate. He said, "Oh, Donald Trump is hiding behind his golf clubs." Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't hiding behind his golf clubs. He was in Michigan. I mean, even Ron DeSantis went after Trump. He said, "Where is he? Where is he?" This is what that sounded like.
Quote, universal deportation for... DeSantis, you haven't spoken, please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed, they printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open. So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action?
Who?
Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses,
you can cut it. I mean, thanks, Ron. Where is Donald Trump? He's way out in front, pal. He's way out in front. Also, DeSantis waits until 15 minutes into this debate to speak, and he calls out Trump, says he should be there. I mean, it had potential. It had potential to be one of those moments, but then he sounds like a goon right after going and pivoting into his pre-written, totally artificial comments. He even breaks out a prop and says, I have a pen right here, and I'd veto those bills. It's like garbage. I'm so tired of these artificial politicians who have been built in a lab. And he called out Donald Trump. It had potential, but he sounded like a goon. And he sounded like a goon all night. I was not impressed with DeSantis. I felt like after the first debate, maybe he could do something a little bit more during this debate, but he didn't. I mean, he went on. He makes good points on China shouldn't be able to buy land. Chinese people shouldn't, Chinese citizens shouldn't be in universities. And, again, he makes decent points. And I even said to my wife, it's strange. A lot of this stuff I'm going to agree with from a lot of these people. But I just feel like it's so fake and artificial. Like, hey, let's go get a focus group together and see what lines hit. And then we'll use those lines. It felt like that from every GOP politician on the stage. And I couldn't understand the moderators the entire night. Even the captions couldn't keep up. It was frustrating at best. It really was. On the way, we're going to give you our thoughts on Ramaswamy. I thought he had some good points. I still think he's a plant. But he's definitely shifting the Overton window on what is acceptable discussion for the Republican Party. Bringing up birthright citizenship, says that's how we go the distance. I mean, it was spicy. We'll talk about it. Plus, take your calls next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The numbers, my friend, 615-737-9986. It's the Chris Hand Show, and we are broadcasting live from Paul Winkler, Inc. in Goodlettsville. If you want to come hang out with us, well, we're at 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. Come say hello. Stop by. It's exit 97 right off 65. So if you're close to there, just pull off the highway, show up to work late. It's going to be okay. Come see us. We're live at Paul Winkler, Inc. It's the Chris Hand Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We'll write them a note. Heavy rain in places out there, some of the heaviest over Clarksville and then just south of downtown between Franklin and downtown Nashville. Some parts of 65 under some heavy rain right now, so take that into consideration, drivers. Got a crash that is blocking the right lane, Briley Parkway southbound south of Ashland City, Highway exit 24. New developments in the search of a plane crash in Kentucky. We'll tell you about that and other top stories at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Is it bad, Ken Weaver?
It's not as bad.
All right, good to know.
But, of course, that's all relative to where you're at.
I was laughing about that all day. It cracked me up. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 9:27. My name is Chris Hand. We are broadcasting live from 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. We're hanging out at Paul Winkler, Inc. And I just got a super text on the super text line. It's 615-737-9986 if you need the number. And a super texter said to me, Chris, you need to have Paul demonstrate how he plays the tambourine with his foot. Hashtag talented man. So I said, excuse me, we need to have these questions answered. I said, Paul, get over here.
Can we get we got to get better questions than that. Come on.
These are the questions that the people want answered, Paul. Financial stuff, I know that's your expertise, but you can play the tambourine with your foot?
Yeah. Well, I can walk and chew gum and rub my head at the same time, too. I mean, I can do all that stuff. Yeah, you use the left and the right side of your brain. It's not that bad. The corpus callosum, you just make them all meet and it all works. Math, people think, drumming, what is it? Anything when you're dealing with music, what is it? It's math. I mean, that's all it is.
You're taking the fun out of it, Paul.
Okay, all right. I don't know how to make that fun, though. I'm not sure.
But what made you one day go, I want to play the tambourine with my foot?
Okay, so sometimes what happens, you're playing like percussion, and you have to have another limb, and God just didn't give me any more than what I got.
So you're like that scene in Mary Poppins where Van Dyke is walking around with like a million instruments going.
It could be one-man band. No,
all
no.
Right.
Not a very good one, by the way.
Paul Winkler is here with us at Paul Winkler, Inc. We're live in Goodlettsville doing the show today. If you are in the area and you have a tambourine and you want to see Paul play it with his foot, get on down here, 3050 Business Park Circle. We want to see you, so put that address into your GPS, 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville. It is 9:29 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the news.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got some pockets of heavy rain out there. Most of it is north of I-40, and the heaviest right now is actually in southern Kentucky. Clarksville getting a little bit of that. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now, about an hour's drive north of Nashville. Search teams say they have found parts of a plane missing from radar since a strong storm last night around 11 o'clock. The plane had a pilot, instructor, and student on board. It was headed to Owensboro from Bowling Green when traffic control lost contact. Right now in our nation's capital.
The Committee on Oversight and Accountability will come to order. I want to welcome everyone here today.
Now the first hearing in the House impeachment inquiry into President Biden underway. 47 U.S. House members, 26 Republicans, 21 Democrats going to consider the question of whether Biden accepted bribes or abused his public office in connection with the son Hunter Biden's business dealings. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement. Put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios, well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return's going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
.936 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. We are broadcasting live from Paul Winkler, Inc. We want you to come by and say hello to us. We have people stopping by saying hi to Paul, saying hi to me. 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville is the address for your GPS. It's exit 97 off 65 if you're rolling through the area. That's at least that's the exit I took. You can, in Tennessee, you can get places a million different ways. So just put 3050 Business Park Circle, Goodlettsville into your GPS, and you'll find it. And we're here. We're going to be here till noon, hanging out, talking shop. We do want to talk about the GOP debate last night, and I said this a minute ago. There's a lot of things that these GOP guys are going to say that I'm going to agree with, and that doesn't mean I'm going to want to vote for them for president. Just full disclosure. Vivek Ramaswamy, me and Mac have talked about this a couple times. He had a meteoric rise, and he seemed like he was the hottest one in the field for a minute, and he's since just cooled. He has. He didn't really have many mic drop moments last night like he did at the first debate, which is what I was looking for. But he did have some good moments. And you can dislike Vivek. You can feel like he's a plant, and I totally get that. But he had some really good moments, and one of them was when he brought up the southern border and he brought up birthright citizenship, and that's what this sounded like.
Quote, universal deportation for all undocumented immigrants and their children, even if the children are citizens of the United States. Under what legal premise will you expel U.S. citizens?
So the first thing I want to say is I agree with everything. The Republicans on the stage are on the right side of this issue. Militarize the southern border, stop funding sanctuary cities, and end foreign aid to Mexico and Central America to end the incentives to come across. But I do go a step further. You're right about that, Ilya. I favor ending birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal immigrants in this country. Now, the left will howl about the Constitution and the 14th Amendment. The difference between me and them is I've actually read the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come here. And as the father of two sons, it is hard for me to look them in the eye and say, you have to follow the law when our own government fails to follow its own laws. That's how we really go the distance and solve this problem and restore the rule of law in the United States of America, because that is part of what it even means to be an American.
Senator Scott.
I mean, I thought it was a based answer, and I think that he's shifting the Overton window of what is acceptable to talk about. I don't think that we would have heard the birthright citizenship point made the way Vivek made it if that question was asked to anybody else on the stage first. I think that a lot of people kind of followed his lead after he said that he was against birthright citizenship, which I think is a solid take. If you have 11 million illegal aliens in the country, we're going to have to do something about this, and birthright citizenship is not the route. And saying that's how we go the distance, I think he's absolutely right. I do. But again, feels like maybe that was a focus group take. Feels like maybe he got some hardcore conservatives in a room, said, what do you guys think about this? And then that was his line. It feels like a lot of Vivek's take are focus group takes, but that doesn't mean he's wrong. It just means that I'm still not in on him as a real candidate. And right after Vivek takes that stance, a lot of the other GOP candidates jump in and say the exact same thing. Tim Scott, for instance, said he was against birthright citizenship, and then brings up the fact that the 14th Amendment was actually created for slavery, not illegal immigrants. But then Tim Scott just pivots and starts swinging at Ramaswamy, says he was partners with Hunter, goes after him. And I will say this about Tim Scott. He's able to stir things up without all the hysterics and word vomit. I mean, Tim Scott can banter, and he proved that last night. And I wish that we would get more of that Tim Scott and less of the I'm Tim Scott and I'm your next president, Tim Scott. I think if he focused on being more of a real human instead of a politician, he would do better in the polls. But every time he kind of banters like that, where he started swinging at Ramaswamy over partnering with Hunter in China, which I'm not sure the details on that, but either way, great banter. You get that Tim Scott, and then immediately following, you get another Tim Scott who's just back to being a classic politician. So, I'm seeing the text coming in. Dan texted and he said, Vivek the cake is Neuralinked to based AI, but is serving globalists. Yep, that sounds like a pretty base take, Dan. He's Neuralinked into based AI. I mean, Vivek said a lot of things that I do agree with. He really did. He had another take, which I thought was really good, on transgenderism and kids, and that's what this sounded like, saying parents have the right to know.
Over 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification. Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is. I met 2 young women early in this campaign.
Specifically on parental rights in schools.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what?
And
the hypocrisy
that was
of this
Vivek,
is.
and he brings it up, and it's just the truth. Again, that's not a radical take. A lot of Republicans feel that way, and it's the truth. And just because I agree with it doesn't mean I like Vivek. He had another moment where Nikki Haley, and this was Nikki Haley's big moment against Vivek, and I thought that this was clutch. She went after Vivek about TikTok. You know, Vivek was very anti-TikTok until he hung out with Jake Paul, of all people, a YouTuber and boxer, and started doing TikTok dances for the kids. But Vivek was very anti-TikTok, and all of a sudden he's a pro-TikTok guy, and Nikki Haley went after him and really hammered him over the TikTok. And I thought that this was a base take from Nikki Haley.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say. Because I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can get all of these things.
This is very important for our party.
Exactly what they're doing.
This is very important for our party, and I'm going to say
you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. We can't trust you. We can't have TikTok in our kids' lives.
This is very
important. Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 15 seconds.
I think, excuse me.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually have a legitimate debate about policy following Reagan's 11th Commandment in his honor. And the answer is that is what actually makes our country strong. And I believe in these people. These are good people on the stage. They disagree, but let's have a legitimate disagreement. That's what I would say.
And, you know, that was a lot of what we saw at the debate. Couple good lines, and then people shouting over each other.
Golly.
Right?
Ridiculous.
It was pretty crazy.
Childish.
Yeah. Yep. It wasn't a good look for anybody, but that was, to me, that was Nikki Haley's biggest moment. Being able to hammer him on TikTok. And she should hammer him on TikTok. I mean, they juice the algorithms for American kids to see the transgenderism stuff, and then they juice the algorithms for kids in China to see engineering and technology. You know, it's a dangerous social media platform, and I don't think any parent should have their kids on it, period. I don't think any parent should be on TikTok either. Very unbased. But my big takeaway from Vivek, and I want to know what you think as well, so feel free to call the Super Talk hotline, 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986. I want to hear your takes on the debate if you watched. A lot of people on the Super Text line, 2090 just said, I'm glad I didn't watch. Sounded like a bleep show. It was. But my big takeaway from Vivek Ramaswamy, no one really votes Republican anymore, okay? The new move is voting in political outsiders into the Republican Party and then voting for candidates that support those outsiders. Vivek gained steam because he's an outsider, you know? And I know what you'll say, is he really an outsider? But, I mean, We don't want Republicans in power anymore. They're corrupt. They're just as bad as the Democrats. And the ones that are on this stage that are still riding Trump's coattails and hoping this whole Trump thing is going to blow over are the worst. But Vivek was out there killing them for that. And I'm no Vivek fan. And I want to stress political outsider because Vivek's in the club, right? Oh, Vivek, the Yale and Harvard outsider. Vivek, the Goldman Sachs intern outsider. Vivek, the hedge fund manager outsider. Vivek, the pharma bro outsider. Vivek, the chair of the Ohio COVID-19 response team outsider. I mean, I hear everybody on Vivek, but he's helping shift that Overton window on acceptable discussion and discourse via these debates. Without a doubt. The birthright citizenship, because of the way he brought it up, is going to become a major topic. It really is. It's going to become a major topic. And it's going to become a major topic because he brought it up and he's a political outsider. And, technically, Vivek is a political outsider. He may be in the club that you and I aren't a part of, but he is a political outsider. And you know what? The Republicans are in panic mode because of it. Because it might not be Vivek, but the next 10 political outsiders we see after a guy like Vivek Ramaswamy, after a guy like Donald Trump, are going to be all the more painful for the Republican Party and the Republican establishment. I mean, Republicans are in panic mode over this stuff. I have a feeling that they won't be able to win elections very soon. The new party is coming. The party has changed. You have the George Bush holdovers. You have the neocon holdovers. But nobody likes them anymore. You see it in the Senate with Mitt Romney not running for re-election. You see this elite Republican neocon class being forced out. You ask a guy my age or Mac's age what they think about Mitch McConnell, trash, garbage. Paul Ryan, trash. Even Fox News, not a fan.
Because we're Fox News and we suck.
Thank you, Mac. Thank you. It's the truth, though. Yep. The old school Republican Party is dying. And whether or not Vivek is a plant, that even if he is a plant, it kind of makes my point even more because it shows that those establishment figures see that the old school Republican Party is dying and feel the need to shift their strategy to a guy extreme with extreme views like Vivek Ramaswamy. So I think this is important to keep our eyes on, and I think that the way the Republican Party is changing is for the better, personally. But I want to know what you think. 615-737-9986. Gene, you're on line one. Gene, you're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's up, Gene? Hey, Gene, what's up?
Well, you were talking about Haley. I wouldn't vote for her if you paid me.
I wouldn't vote for her either, Gene.
Well, she's two-faced. She said to begin with she would run against Trump, and she did. But the reason a lot of Republicans are tired of, quote, the Republican establishment is because they are the establishment. They're just as bad as some of the Democrats up there. We need people that really care about the people in this country.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Gene, and thank you for the call. And yeah, the establishment are just as bad as the Democrats, two sides of the same coin. I got a text from 0930 who said, it's our friend Sally in Sunnyside. She said, the debating should be done in soundproof booths.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Right?
That would be great.
Is he doing like WWF style, like in the Elimination Chamber where the lights go in and it's a soundproof booth? Wouldn't that be awesome? That would be based.
JT texted in, Vivek is a plant, no doubt, but Trump should steal that line about the birthright citizenship being in conflict with 14th Amendment.
I think it was a good line. I do. It feels like they went into a red-pilled focus group to come up with base lines for Vivek, but, a base line by a plant is still a base line. So I applaud him for shifting the Overton window on what we can talk about here in this new Republican Party. It is 9:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. We are broadcasting live from Paul Winkler, Inc. I want you to come out and see us. If you need the address for your GPS, it is 3050 Business Park Circle, in Goodlettsville. Exit 97 off 65. Come see us. Paul's hanging out. He can help you with your investment futures, and he's got goodie bags and gifts if you want to come say hello. So it's worth it for the goodie bag. I may steal a goodie bag, so get here quick. It's 9:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Still have the right lane of Briley Parkway southbound, just south of Ashland City Highway blocked. This is going to be west of downtown. Bodies found after a long search. These stories and more coming up at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. We were talking about the GOP debate last night, and we are doing that live from Paul Winkler, Inc., 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville, exit 97 off 65. You want to come see us, come hang out. We're here. People are stopping by, grabbing Paul Winkler gift bags. We got some snacks. We got plenty of snacks. I'm sorry you're not here, Mac.
Oh, lucky snacks.
We got
one in.
Real good snacks.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, they're good. We're not hungry here.
Okay.
Hey, Corey on line one. You have some thoughts on the debate. Corey, you're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's up, Corey?
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing okay. I might be late to this comment, but I want to make a comment on Chris Christie.
Yeah, go for it.
Man, I cannot stand, and this is just an opinion, but I cannot stand the ground that man walks on. If you go back to 2015 when, Trump was first running and everyone was doing debates, he threw every single up that he could possibly throw at him until Trump gave him a job after he won in 2016. And then he sit there and acted like he was the best thing ever, and now what are they doing again? Now he's cracking Donald jokes and all this. But my opinion is I think Chris Christie's trying to get the votes of the Democrats, not the Republicans, because his whole agenda is the whole Trump scandals and all this. Like, it's absolutely sickening to hear the man talk.
No, I'm with you. He definitely sounds like he's trying to position himself for a CNN talk show position.
I mean, he would host it very, very well. But
he really would.
I don't understand how he can, sit and talk about how great he was for 4 years, and now we're going to go into, everything that I ever supported him for, I was lying. I mean, come on, man.
No, you're absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Corey. Thank you for the call. Anything you want to talk about on the debate? 615-737-9986. Yeah, to me, Chris Christie is faker than meat from Bill Gates. It's 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the latest news.
Ten o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still tracking some showers out there, scattered, but some of it is heavy. Some of the heaviest right now, right in between Murfreesboro and Lebanon, and then just south of the Kentucky border, Springfield getting hammered. You're going to find it on 65 in between the Portland exit and Hendersonville. Very heavy rain in spots there. Also, Clarksville still getting very heavy rain. None of this stuff's expected to go severe. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now, about 70 miles north of Nashville. USA Today reporting authorities have found the wreckage of a plane which the tower lost during a strong storm last night. Both the pilot instructor and the student pilot on board were killed. The plane was headed to Owensboro from Bowling Green. And right now in our nation's capital,
the House Oversight and Accountability Committee has uncovered a mountain of evidence revealing how Joe Biden abused his public office for his family's financial gain.
That's Committee Chair James Comer opening the first hearing of the House impeachment inquiry. Today, the 47 members, 26 Republicans, 21 Democrats, will hear from a constitutional law professor, a forensic accountant, and a former Justice Department official on why Republicans think that they have the evidence to move forward with an impeachment based on corruption charges against the president. President Biden continues his trip out west today. He's in Arizona on purpose.
The White House says President Biden, in his speech on democracy today in Arizona, will draw on the legacy of his friend, the late Senator John McCain. An official said McCain's, quote, intolerance for the abuse of power and faith in America sets a powerful example to live by. According to excerpts released by the White House, the president will say McCain was a, quote, proud Republican who put country first. The president will be joined by McCain's widow, Cindy, and other members of the McCain family. He'll announce federal funding for the McCain Library, a facility that will provide education, work, and health monitoring programs to underserved communities in Arizona.
As Karen Travers reporting in the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, it's Chris Hand for Paul Winkler, Inc. Now, I have 4 kids. Financial stability is a big priority, and that's why I linked up with Paul and his team. Now, Paul and his teams hold themselves to a higher level of fiduciary standard than is required, and that's why I'm required to tell you that every time this commercial airs, I'm paid, and that's fair enough. But it's because I got to sit down with Paul and meet him and talk to him that I decided to become a client myself. Paul's actually here with me today at the studios. And Paul, why should somebody call you and link up with you for their investment future?
This weekend's show.
This weekend's show.
Yeah, the third hour of the week. I actually did something on this weekend's show that I've never done before. And, I were talking about it a little bit earlier. And I says, so the client comes in and says, hey, Paul, you ought to talk a little bit about, we have what's called GIPS auditing that we have done on our portfolios. And it's Global Investment Performance Standards. And literally what it is, you have an outside accounting firm to actually look at actual client returns. And I'm thinking, and she's going, who does that? Nobody. The big mutual fund companies, Vanguard, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, American Funds, any of the big investment firms, you don't see that. And I was talking about in the show, it was like 45,000 different investment firms, something like that out there. And it was 1,700, I think was the number, because we're looking at the number of companies that actually do that, where they look at actual client returns and they have that data. And you're just driving blindly.
But you don't drive blindly with Paul Winkler. So if you want to have data-proven results and have a guy that can explain them to you, it's Paul Winkler. Set up a complimentary 15-minute phone call right now on his website, paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com.
Information fueled, opinion driven.
Yeah, I figured I'd just... Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We are talking about last night's GOP debate, and we're broadcasting live while we do it from Paul Winkler, Inc. in Goodlettsville. If you want to come see us, we're at 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville. Exit 97 off 65. Come see us. We're hanging out. We got snacks. We got gift bags. Paul is in the building. He'll give you some great financial advice. And we also want to know what you think about the debate last night. Stan in Lebanon, you have a comment on the debate. Stan, you're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's up, Stan?
Hey, I was just got a thought here. I'm thinking by the time the primaries get around, this one may go down in history as the fewest candidates in a primary that we've ever had by the time they're kind of narrowed down, And you throw one more comment in. I was listening to Brian Wilson's show yesterday.
Yes, sir.
And y'all have a lot of fun on your show, but I swear yesterday Mike Morey, he made the comment of the year and actually had Brian Wilson speechless for a couple seconds. Ask him about the pillow comment that he made.
Oh, no. You made a pillow comment on Brian's show?
Stan, I'm so glad you like that.
What did you say about pillows on his show?
Stan's referring to Brian Wilson, got in a holly bush over the weekend, and it's got this, really red eye, and he was talking about how his red eye is now a little bit, less red, it's lessened, and now it's more of a pink eye. And I was like, yeah, before it looked like you got viciously attacked, and now it looks like someone farted on your pillow.
Oh. All right.
So thanks for rehashing that, Stan. Lovely.
I'm sure you're going to have a talk with HR about that later on today, I'm sure.
Wow. Funny.
Classic. All right. Well, good to know. Good to know. Thanks, Stan. Thanks, Mac. Larry in Clarksville, you have a comment on Chris Christie. Larry, you're on Super Talk. What's up, Larry?
Well, first of all, there's no way I could follow that. That was the first show I've been able to actually listen to, after 5 days of, some pretty harrowing circumstances. But if Chris Krispy Kreme thinks that Donald Trump is Donald the Duck, Chris Christie is Porky the Pig.
Oh.
And I'll leave it at that. And Mac, brother, you almost had me break some stitches. Which I'm going to deal with you later about.
Thanks, Larry.
Hey, thanks for the call, Larry. Listen, what did Donald Trump say? People want to have me make fat jokes about Chris Christie. We're not going to do that here. We're not going to call him disgusting and fat. We're not going to do that. So we're not going to do that here either. But the debate was fun last night. I don't know. I feel like, again, I'll just rehash my power rankings. Trump was definitely the big winner. Absolutely the big winner. Vivek came in next. Doug Burgum, I thought, was really just fantastic. He fought. He showed hustle. He grinded it out and made every opportunity that he had on the camera. After that was DeSantis for me. Then a wide gap. Pence, Scott, Christie. Another wide gap. Nikki Haley. Even though I did like Nikki Haley's comment on TikTok, she just doesn't have the right vibe for me. She feels very neocon-y to me. Does she feel like that to you? 615-737-9986. 7793 says Chris Christie is a mole for the Democrats. He could be. There's interesting things that you can take away from the debate last night. Again, I think that the interesting thing to me is that this is the end of the Republican Party as we knew it. We're not looking for establishment Republicans anymore. And the majority of the people on that stage were establishment Republicans. And I'm not with that. I'm not. I don't want the neocon Bush layover. And it felt like a lot of that stage was neocon Bush layover. We haven't even gotten to Mike Pence yet, who didn't really say much of anything at all last night.
I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't. I don't know. He's Mike Pence. The only thing that I really had to take away from Mike Pence was that he must have had the same makeup guy that Asa Hutchinson had for his first debate. Just looked like he got the old mortician makeup job. It's crazy. Like who told him that was a good idea? But you have all these guys bringing up Donald Trump, saying he should be on the debate stage, and Joe Biden's using that to his advantage. And in fact, they're already using the DeSantis ads saying, "Where's Donald Trump? He's missing in action." They're using that in commercials now. It's amazing how quickly that was made, and it's amazing that they didn't realize that that's how that was going to go. Biden DeSantis 2024. That's what it feels like to me. But where do we go from here? I think there's only one real way, and I think it's Donald Trump. I think he's light years ahead. And I don't think that anybody's going to surpass him at this point. And I think he made the right decision not being there. Why would he go there when he's so far ahead of all these people? My wife and I were talking, and she said that she felt like he should have been there. And I said, but there's no positives that can come from that. It would have only been a negative. There's no chance that he can gain any more of a lead than he already has. I mean, maybe he could, but he's so far out in front that the only realistic possibility would be that he would get hurt from being at the debate. So I think he made the right choice. David in Hendersonville, what are your thoughts on the debate, my friend? You're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's up, David?
Hey, buddy. How you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, I've got a couple things, but first, you got to give Max the award for joke of the year with that pillow comment yesterday. I thought it was hilarious. But I agree 100% with Vivek on the birthing immigrants.
Yep.
Now, they do not need to be have automatic citizenship just because they had a child over here. That child does not. It's not, and it has nothing to do with the child. But you can't go to any other country and it happens like that.
No, you're absolutely right, and I appreciate the call. What do you think about Vivek though, in terms of if he's a plant or if he's the real deal?
He's definitely not the real deal. I think he is a plant.
Yeah, he feels like he was made in a focus group.
Right. Hey, man,
Yep.
I heard something this morning on Dan's show that really teed me off. It was up in New York. It was a veteran from the Korean War, which my father was in, was kicked out of his retirement home so they could make room for these freaking immigrants, and it keyed me off so bad. You know, I got to be careful because I know you guys got rules on there, and I can break them real easy.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I can break our rules too, and I totally understand where you're coming from. Thanks for the call, Dave. If you missed that on Dan's show, we'll play it in a little while. There was a veteran. His name is Frank Tamaro, and he was kicked out of his New York nursing home on short notice, so that way his room could be given away to the illegal aliens that are overwhelming the city. I mean, it's really sad. It's really sad what's happening in this country. America last, right? It seems like it's always America last. The people on the debate stage, they seem like they want to put America first, but I worry that they're just telling us what we want to hear. Lindsay in Pleasant Shade, what do you think about the GOP debate? Do you think it was a lot of people telling us what we want to hear, or do you think some of these guys on the debate stage were authentic, Lindsay? You're on Super Talk. What's up?
I think that the whole idea, Levin had a one-on-one and earlier this morning with the Three Amigos. Dan Mandis was saying a one-on-one debate. I think he should go to one. But he has no business, with these buffoons.
Who has no business with them? Trump?
Trump, yeah. I think Dan called him a genius for staying out of it, or Levin did. I think he's staying away from the fray.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, the only thing that could happen would be probably that he would go down if somebody got him with a zinger or if there was a flub. You know,
he would step out of line. He'd get his dander up and say something, and they'd just run away with it.
Yep,
also,
exactly.
I made up names for all you guys, you amigos.
You made up names for the amigos?
Yes, and you usually are fourth because you come in, but you're like laid back and cool, and so Cool Hand Luke.
Yep.
Well, you're Chris Hand Luke.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you, Lindsay. That's out of all the nicknames I've ever been given, that's one of the nicest. So I appreciate you.
All right, and I had trouble with Ken Weaver because he's got that beard, so I wanted to call him Kenny Rogers, but it's like a ZZ Top beard. So, and he's Ken Weaver, so his name is Dreamweaver.
Dreamweaver.
He's Dreamweaver.
How did you know? How did you know what we call him off the air?
I didn't.
We've been calling
Johnny
him that
B,
for years.
He's got the actual Kenny Rogers beard, but he's like the friendly giant.
I love it.
I always see him as Uncle Phil's partner.
Yeah, R.I.P. Uncle Phil.
And speaking of which, I was looking for you guys online today, and my computer whacked out, and I got a Phil Valentine. You got to write this down. It's a tea party, Nashville, Tennessee, 4/14/2009. It was on 1510 WLAC AM, and it's really short, but he's saying the same things in 2009 that basically we're all saying now.
He was absolutely ahead of his time. There's no doubt about it. Phil could see what was coming down. Yep, you're absolutely right.
And by the way, the screen caller is always Mac the Knife because he knifes anybody he doesn't let in.
I love it, Lindsay. Thanks for the call.
He does that in the parking lot too.
He does. Mac is handy with a blade, if you know what I mean. Richard in Nashville, what are your thoughts on the debate, my friend? Richard, you're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Pretty good. The comment I had about the debate last night, I have two other comments if I could, and it all tied. Mike Pence, I don't understand why he has to think, basically every time he talks, he has to think he wants to sound like John Kerry.
Yep.
That opera, that tremolo operatic, it's like he's trying to make up for his lack of substance with trying to sound more president, and it doesn't. People don't like him and won't like him. He doesn't stand a chance. Number two, actually, the second point I wanted to make is about the UAW strike and how basically I don't know how much they touched on it, but the UAW, I'm glad Trump was up there at the picket line, and I hope he pointed out that the United Auto Workers, the people that are representing them are betraying them, and basically they are selling them out and they're either stupid or they're ignorant. And I can't think that they're ignorant, but I can't think they're stupid or ignorant. Or they're getting paid off because they pointed out that we're going to endorse Joe Biden for president when the time is right. And they already pointed out that we are going with the green path.
Yep.
And the workers don't want it. They don't want these cars. And what's going to happen, as I understand, I said last night, mark the words, what's going to happen is when they're going to take government subsidies to keep them afloat because they're losing billions on products that they don't want. They're too overpriced. They're out of reach. Biden does not want them in cars at all. He already whispered that we're going to have people in buses. Just watch. So what happens is when the subsidies run out, the workers are going to be out of jobs. They're going to ship these cars overseas. They've already said they're going to ship them overseas, have them produced. They're going to be out of job. They're going to be out of work. And the cars will be Number three, if I could really quick, please. Donald Trump, the thing with the Donald Trump, I voted for the man, but he concerns me is because now he does not make any point. He has to be nailed down on things like the abortion issue and actually even the electric going green cars and things like that. He will not answer. And that's what concerns me is he going to be a lame duck on re-election? That's my point. I'm hoping he's not.
I mean, on the Donald Trump thing, I'll say this: he's trying to win over independents right now, right?
Right.
So, and you can't argue with him on the electric vehicle front, saying you should have the right to choose. If you want to buy one, but they're terrible. Like he's right. You should have the right to choose. And then on the abortion thing, he got Roe overturned, man. Like it was direct action from Donald Trump and his Supreme Court justices that got Roe overturned. Name a president who has done more for the pro-life movement than Donald Trump. You can't. There's no president that's done more. To your other point, Mac, I just sent you this clip in the Twitter chat.
Yeah, I got it.
So President Trump, he basically echoed what you were saying last night to our last caller, that the auto industry and Biden has surrendered the auto industry to China. This is what that sounded like.
Joe Biden is surrendering our auto industry to China, just like he surrendered our borders to the cartels and he surrendered Afghanistan in the most embarrassing week, day, time period in the history of our country.
He's absolutely right. I mean, if Biden stays in office, if Biden is reelected, or if any Democrats reelected for that matter, forget a pride flag. Our new flag is just going to be a white flag with the way they're surrendering. It's 10:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. We're broadcasting live from Paul Winkler, Inc., 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville. We want you to come out and see us, meet Paul, say hi, maybe even jump on the air if you got something to say. I'd love to talk to you. We're live here in Goodlettsville at Paul Winkler Inc. Come see us. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Getting messy in traffic. Got a crash blocking the right 2 lanes of 65 southbound in Brentwood. And then a stalled tractor trailer blocking the left shoulder of 65 southbound right there at the 24 North exit 88 in Nashville. 2 bodies have been found believed to be the pilot, instructor, and student on board a plane that crashed in Kentucky. And I've got an update for you on the government shutdown that's looming. Just wait till you hear what Matt Gaetz said. It's coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, Ken Weaver, I can hear the smile in your voice. It's got to be good.
Man, that dude is a pit bull.
I love him. I'm here for it. I can't wait. Ken Weaver in the news coming up at 10:30. Right now, a guy that was making headlines in the debate that I didn't really expect. I didn't expect him to show up, but it kind of goes to what we were saying yesterday about a shadow primary happening and whether or not Biden's even going to make it to 2024. The more I see this guy popping up, the more I think the shadow primary is real. Biden isn't going to make it to 2024. It's going to be someone else, but is it going to be Gavin Newsom? Is it going to be Hillary Clinton? Could it be Michelle Obama? Well, it seems like Newsom is out there making his case, and he went to the debate last night, and he was absolutely dunking on the GOP. This is what it sounded like.
Governor, what do you think is going to be the takeaway after this debate from the American people?
I think it will be clear that Trump comes out the dominant force after this debate. I mean, this is the XFL. This is JV. I mean, and honestly, this is maybe a vice presidential debate. These guys are getting lapped by Donald Trump. It's not even close. It's not even interesting. And I think what's most interesting to me is, do they recognize that? Or are they actually going to show up and run against the guy that's in the way of their prospects to be the nominee? It's a zero-sum game. It's a binary choice at the end of the day. It's not a ranked choice voting. So either these guys come after the front runner and distinguish themselves, or otherwise they're wasting everybody's time. And I say this with love and respect. There's a reason some of the advertising is being discounted for this debate. People don't even want to tune in because they know that fundamentally.
We talked about the discounted advertising last night, and it's not every day I want to admit that I'm agreeing with Gavin Newsom, but he's right. That the debate was JV, it was the XFL, and there's no positives that any of the GOPers got from the debate last night. None. Even a guy who had a lot of positives coming out of the first one, like Vivek, didn't get any positives. And I think that we need to really be worried about Gavin Newsom. Because he's a smooth talker, he comes off as smart, he comes off as likable, and I don't like him. I know you don't like him, but I'm talking about the other side. They're definitely going to view Gavin Newsom as a better choice over Joe Biden, and the man may be delusional in some aspects, but he says things that the Democrat base wants to hear. This was him on CBS News talking about the border and saying that, no, Republicans are basically just using it as fear porn.
What is the biggest piece of misinformation you think this so-called JV squad has been peddling? What concerns you the most?
Well, across the board. They sell fear and panic around border and crime, but they sell common indifference around things like climate change.
What?
He knows the talking points. He knows his audience. He knows his base. And I think that's a guy that we really do need to look out for. Will Trump mop the floor with Biden in a general? Yeah. Would Trump mop the floor with Hillary? Pretty sure he would. Gavin Newsom and Michelle Obama? I don't know, man. It gets dicey. It gets dicey real fast. 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the news.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still some pockets of heavy rain out there. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now in Kentucky, 2 bodies have been found believed to be the pilot, instructor, and student on board a plane that crashed late last night during a strong storm. The debris and bodies found about 70 miles north of Nashville in Ohio County. That plane was headed to Owensboro from Bowling Green. Right now in our nation's capital, the first hearing of the House impeachment inquiry into President Biden is underway.
For years, President Biden has lied to the American people about his knowledge of and participation in his family's corrupt business scheme.
House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer in his opening statements. Rachel Scott asked Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz if what Speaker Kevin McCarthy puts up tomorrow is going to pass to help avoid a federal government shutdown.
Do you believe McCarthy has the votes if he puts that CR on the floor tomorrow?
No, he doesn't.
It'll fail.
Yeah.
And right now, he says that he's talking to Democrats in the Senate trying to broker a deal. What do you make of that?
Well, Democrats in the Senate and Kevin McCarthy have a lot in common ideologically.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement. Put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return is going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Welcome into the Chris Hand Show. We are broadcasting live today from 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville. We are live at Paul Winkler, Inc., and you're invited to come out and join us. We got snacks. We got drinks. Paul made a bunch of gift bags for you in case you want to come say hello. And we're also talking about the GOP debate last night. Newman in the borough, you have a comment on who you think should be Trump's VP. Newman, you're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's up, Newman?
Hello, Chris. How are you doing, sir?
Good, man. How are you? What's up?
Hey, I'm doing okay. So listen, I just kind of got a different point that I really wish that Trump would start naming a running mate. And the reason why I'm thinking this is because we know that the Democrats are so hell-bent and have so much vitriol to him that who knows what they're capable of. And I don't even mean to kind of put it out there, but we do know that the three-letter agencies, where they kind of align. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if he's able to need somebody, then we wouldn't be stuck with the 5 that we're looking at, or 4, whatever way you want to look at it. I mean, none of them would, I think, would be able to beat Biden, and definitely not Gavin Newsom. And so if he was to be able to name somebody, which I think we all kind of know that where he'd be going, the gnome from South Dakota, then I think that we'd be much more suited.
Yeah, I mean, I think Noam could definitely be the VP. I think Kerry Lake could be good also. I think the fact that you don't name one right now is just fog of war. Don't show your hand until you need to. I think he probably has already made the decision in his mind. I think that their minds are probably already pretty made up on who he wants to be a VP. But it's going to be interesting, and I'm eagerly waiting just as much as you. Thanks for the call. Appreciate you, Newman. The debate last night, it did focus a lot on the economy and the damage that Joe Biden has done to the economy and what Bidenomics has done to the economy. I mean, most of the evening was given to policy questions, and a lot of people were asked about the ongoing economic turmoil in the U.S. Luckily, I'm sitting here with an economic expert, Paul Winkler. What did you think about the GOP field and their response to the economy last night?
The first thing that hit me was the comment about 85% of people feeling very, very uncertain about the economy. That was the first thing that hit me. They talked about it. It's one of the very first opening questions that they talked about that. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. There was new economic data coming out about consumer confidence, very, very low. A lot of people, feel worse off under the current conditions. You have a lot of things that are out there that are uncertainties right now. Like, for example, under Trump, what happened with the tax rates? You had these tax brackets drop down to 10 and 12%, right? Yep. And it used to be 15. And then you had 10 and 12%. So a lot of people got a tax cut. They also got their standard deduction. It used to be you had a very, very low standard deduction. If you're married, let's say you would have a certain amount that you would be able to earn and you didn't have to pay any taxes on it. Well, doggone it, it's jumped up to almost $30,000 now is what it's at, right? Yep. So a lot of people that were have been way better off tax-wise. And then you had the 22 and 24% tax brackets that we've got now. 25 was what it was before. Well, basically what's happening in 2025, that's sunsetting. And a lot of people are sitting there going, am I going to be paying more taxes in the future? That's another thing, because that actually affects economic policy all over the place.
Well, didn't Joe Biden promise that he wouldn't raise taxes on anybody making under $400,000 a year?
Well, then you have the other aspect of things. This is a big thing that's being talked about, the donut hole concept with Social Security.
Yep.
So, and I think intuitively people know that if you start to tax wealthier people, you end up with fewer jobs. I think intuitively they know that. So you get to earn up to about it's a little over 150,000. It changes all the time, but it goes up. But you get to earn that much. You pay Social Security taxes on that income up to that level. Then you don't pay any Social Security taxes on that afterwards. So, you get your 6.2%, both sides, employer side and the employee side. So you add those two together, it's over 12%, right?
Yep.
And it's deductible, so it's a little bit complicated. But in essence, what happens, they said there are people out there running and talking about this idea of here's what we got to do. We got to, we got to shore up Social Security. which there are things that need to be done with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to, you don't have to pay taxes on Social Security over $150,000 or so, but when you get to up to like $450,000, then you have to pick it up again. Well, who does that hit? The wealthy, who are already at 37% tax bracket plus state income taxes. So you take those two things together, you're up at maybe in some states, 47% of your income.
Yeah.
Then you add another 12 on top of that because they're business owners. And what do we know? We know that likely what will happen is the economy gets very, very hurt by that. It was Art Laffer and Rex Sinquefield. There were two guys that actually did a lot of work on income taxes all around the country. Sinquefield was, you see these stock market charts.
Yep.
Sinquefield was the guy that actually did a lot of that research. He and Roger Ibbotson. Well, in his retirement, he decided to study tax policy and how it affected the economy. So he goes in and he's looking at these different places around the country. He and Art Laffer, who's Reagan's economic advisor, and Margaret Thatcher's economic advisor. And he says, hey, let's take a look at what happens. And they found that in every case, no matter where they went, when they raised taxes, the economy went backwards. And I think a lot of people just intuitively know when you're looking at more taxes, you're looking at possibility of problems down the road. Now, and a lot of times when I try to stay out of these types of things because, I'm helping people with investing. And what I often point out to people is that much of what I'm saying, all this pessimism, is actually built into market pricing still. So don't look at that as what I'm saying as, hey, get out of the market because of this or anything like that. Because you look at the worst economic conditions we had in the past couple of decades. When was it? 2009, 2010, 12, you had 11. Those were bad years, yet the stock market went up. So don't equate those two things, the economy and the stock market, but just recognize that that's what's coming out of that. A lot of people are feeling very uneasy as a result of it.
Well, it seems like a lot of people freak out and the economy goes bad and they're just like, well, no, I'm going to keep all my money and not invest it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a bad strategy when we're seeing the inflation happening at such like the rates we're seeing it?
It really is. So, if we look back through history, go back 100 years, you look at fixed income investments. We've had higher interest rates than we have right now. But in general, back all the way to the 1920s, the rate of return in treasury bills, which are short-term government notes, has been about 0.3, 0.4% return after inflation. Almost nothing. And, the reality of it is when you have the money supply increasing, that is inflation because it devalues the dollar. Well, if you're a company, what are you going to do if you see that there are more dollars and you have a fixed number of goods? It's basic economics. You're going to raise prices.
Yep.
And when you own those companies, because that's what you are when you're a stockholder, you're an owner of that company, what you will do is whatever you've got to do to get earnings to go up, and hence what happens is stock market returns in the 1980s, early 1980s, late 1970s, when we had a lot of inflation, stock market returns were really good, and hence that's why we always talk about stocks protecting from inflation. You hear people say, oh, gold's a protector against it. No, gold went down when inflation was at its highest in the 1980s. It's actually the opposite. It's a terrible hedge against inflation.
Really? So,
yeah,
Bob Menendez taking bribes in gold bars wasn't exactly the best
that wasn't
move?
a good idea. No, I love these gold commercials. You need gold, and the dollar's going to crash. And I go, wait a minute. You're telling me the dollar's going to crash, so basically you want my dollars for your gold?
That's interesting, yeah.
I mean, that's goofy. But that's what they're doing.
What about silver?
No, none of it's a commodity.
Okay.
For an investment to have value, it has to have a cost of capital. Somebody's got to be a cost of capital. Somebody's paying to use your money.
So if you were a Democratic senator, what would you accept bribes in?
This was like, is that a rhetorical question? I hope.
Well, you said don't take bribes in gold bars. I'm just curious.
Well, I'll take stock. I suppose. I'll take a really well diversified portfolio.
Perfect. Good to know. We are broadcasting live at Paul Winkler's studio, 3050 Business Park Circle. If you want to come check us out, we're down here. Paul's got snacks. Paul, you got such a spread here, man. You got snacks, you got gift bags. You're a man of the people.
Yeah.
What do you suggest to do in this economy for somebody who's like, I don't know where to go with my money, but I feel like I need to do something? Because you look around everywhere, it seems like everything's on fire right now.
Yeah.
Like what what is like the safest route, and what would you suggest?
Well, the reality is the rules don't change no matter what's going on in the economy. So we don't change our financial plan, because if you're changing how much I put in stocks, how much I put in bonds, how much I put in cash, if you're making those changes, by definition, you're market timing. And if you look at research on market timing, it's really, really bad.
Okay.
Studies going back to the 1980s. One study was really interesting. They found that there were all these pension plans, and they found 91 pension plans, and they actually studied them, and they looked at what they engaged in, stock picking, market timing. They found that 100% of the time when they engaged in it, they hurt returns, they didn't help returns.
Really?
So the answer to your question would be, how much money might I need in 1 to 2 years? I might need every dime of this in 1 to 2 years. Cash is the place for that type of thing. That's the direction I would be going in those types of cases, because I don't want to be taking market risk. Now, it doesn't mean somebody can't go and say, I'm going to do it anyway. But you really have to be well advised. If somebody's, I just have to really watch when I give. I can't be giving strict advice here. But
can you explain market timing to me like I'm 5 years old?
Yeah. So if I believe that stocks are going to go up, I am going to put my money in stocks in hopes of getting those gains when it goes up. Okay. If I believe that it's going to go down, that's strict market timing. I'm going to be 100% in cash because I think the market's going to go down. I'm going to be 100% in stocks if I think it's going to go up. A lot of people do what's called tactical asset allocation, and you'll find that when you read their prospectuses and their ADVs, their disclosure reports, that's what they're doing. That's when you're saying, I think small companies are going to do better than large, so I'm going to put a little bit more in small companies than I am large, or I'm going to put a little bit more in value. Well, if you really think that small companies are going to do better than large, put all your money there. Why would you do that? I mean, why don't you just bet the farm if you are so confident? And the reality is they're not. So they hedge the bet, and the reason they hedge the bet is they know darn well they don't really know what's going to happen in the future. That's why you see guys throwing darts at stock tables, beating the professionals. And you go, why are they beating? John Stossel used to do that, and he would go and throw darts at the stock tables, and he would beat the pro firms every single year. And he would ask this Princeton professor, Burton Malkiel, why am I beating them? And he goes, they know darn well that they can't do it, but they know, but they still think they sort of kind of can. It's ego.
It's hubris almost.
It really is. It's just their ego gone awry, and they believe they can do it, and they engage in that because it's, hey, I've studied all these years. Why can't I figure out where the market's going?
If you're just tuning in, Paul was talking about stock traders and market timing, not GOP candidates on the debate stage last night.
Well, then you're getting a lot of that going on inside of the politics, right? We hear that.
Why are they doing it? I don't know. They just think they can. They can't, but they think they can.
Yeah, well, if they're making legislation based on the companies that you're buying, and okay, we won't go there.
What do you think about the people that do like the Nancy Pelosi, watch what Nancy Pelosi buys in stocks?
Well,
because there are a whole internet web threads dedicated to following what the Pelosi's and the Feinsteins are investing in.
There have been similar things with CEOs of companies when you have insider buying and selling, because they have to be public, but they have to tell you what they're going to do with their own stock if they're in the company. And there have been websites dedicated to that as well. The problem is that when that information comes out, both people that currently own the stock and people that are thinking of buying it get the information at the same time. So when the information comes out, if it's positive information that the CEO is buying, let's say, then the price goes up commensurately because of that, commensurate with the news coming out. So it's a waste of time. You want to be the person that knows the information before it's public information. That's why they call it insider trading. That makes sense?
So there's no real benefit in following what Nancy Pelosi buys, because by the time you get a chance to buy it, it's either already gone up or gone down.
Right, and that's why it was such a problem, and that's why they were making such a big stink out of it. There was a really interesting study in the 1990s of the Oslo Stock Exchange, because it was well known for insider trading. Yeah. And what they found was that people buying and selling in those markets, even though they had insider information, because it was so ubiquitous, what they did is they found that they actually didn't beat market returns over there.
Really?
So that's why it was such a big deal when this whole thing came out about Pelosi and all of that. Yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So they just didn't even, it didn't make any difference.
It didn't make any difference because the information was known and there was just too much information out there. So that's the idea behind efficient markets. You go back a couple hundred years over, and Adam Smith, the guy that said, hey, there's this invisible hand, and that's what actually sets market pricing. Yeah. That was the whole idea behind capitalism. There's an invisible hand. You have ease of information. I can get information anywhere, and ease of transaction. I can make trades, and now we have better information than we've ever had. And what happens is as time goes on, the markets become more and more and more efficient because of that. And that's where the whole thing came from. We said, hey, let's set up an economy based on this dude's thinking, Adam Smith. And that's why America has been such a great experiment. And it's why it's worked, is because we have pursued that, saying, hey, let people do what they will. Let free markets reign. That's the whole idea behind it.
Fascinating. All right, we're hanging out with Paul Winkler, Inc. We are live at the Paul Winkler, Inc. studios, Paul's office in Goodlettsville. If you want to come hang out with us, we're at 3050 Business Park Circle. You can come down, grab a snack, grab a gift bag, say hi to Paul. You can tell Paul knows what he's talking about. So if you got any financial questions, he can answer them for you. And you can come hang out with us. Maybe if you want to talk politics, we can get on the air too. We're live here at Paul Winkler, Inc. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Still working crashes. We got one in Whites Creek, 24 westbound between Briley Parkway North and Old Hickory Boulevard. That is stop-and-go traffic. Then we got a crash in Brentwood. Right 2 lanes blocked, 65 southbound at OHB. Got a grim search in Kentucky. Opening statements from the first hearing of the House impeachment inquiry into President Biden and another move toward improving public safety in Tennessee. These stories and more at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It's Chris Hand broadcasting live with Super Talk 99.7 WTN right now at 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville. We're hanging out at Paul Winkler, Inc. If you have any questions for Paul, you can send them in. I got people asking questions about fractional reserve banking and the Fed, Bitcoin, crypto. We're going to ask them those questions when we get back. But we're joking about Bob Menendez taking bribes in gold bars, and Paul said, I wouldn't take a bribe in a gold bar. And it reminded me of what Matt Gaetz was saying on the floor just the other day. And some genius on the internet actually took the Seinfeld music and put it to Matt Gaetz, and that's what this sounds like right here.
We are devaluing American money so rapidly that in America today, you can't even bribe Democrat senators with cash alone. You need to bring gold bars to get the job done, just so that the bribes hold value.
So good. So good. 11 o'clock on Super Talk. Here's Ken Weaver in the news.
Eleven o'clock on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still got some scattered showers out there, some of them heavy at times. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now in Kentucky, authorities say they found 2 bodies in the search for a plane that crashed late last night on the way to Owensboro from Bowling Green. There were 2 people on board, a pilot, instructor, and a student. No names have been released. The cause of that crash will be investigated. Right now in our nation's capital, Stephen Portnoy has the opening statements from the first hearing of the House impeachment inquiry into President Biden.
The Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee says there's a mountain of evidence that the president has lied to the country when he's claimed not to have any knowledge of or involvement in his son and brother's business.
Then Vice President Joe Biden spoke, dined, and developed relationships with his family's foreign business targets.
Chairman James Comer's opening was met by this stinging response from the panel's top Democrat, Jamie Raskin.
If the Republicans had a smoking gun or even a dripping water pistol, they would be presenting it today, but they've got nothing on Joe Biden.
White House calling the impeachment inquiry all politics, no evidence. Right now in Tennessee, Governor Lee and other state leaders are celebrating the opening of a mental health court in Montgomery County. This brings the total number of mental health courts in Tennessee to 17. There were just 3 prior to 2022. Rebecca Provost Emmons is the director of the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, who tells News 2 these courts improve public safety and the way people with mental illness are treated in the justice system in Tennessee.
They have to voluntarily agree to participate in the programming. And then once they do, a special individualized treatment plan is developed for them as they progress through the program.
In 2022, the Tennessee legislature adopted a budget with funding for mental health courts for the first time in state history. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And for Jeff Eddy's efficient heating and cooling, now, the weather this time of year in Middle Tennessee gets schizophrenic, right? It's up, it's down, it's hot, it's cold. You're flipping on your AC, you're flipping on your heat, and around that time, the whole thing goes kaput. And you know what? You got to call somebody, and it can be so hard to find somebody you trust when it comes to these large home repairs, and that especially includes your heating and cooling. Do you want to drop thousands of dollars when you could just replace a part? Well, if you feel like you're being pressured into replacing your system, you just may be, because most companies will pressure you into replacing that system because they make more money that way. Well, Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling, they don't do that. They're a small company with big service and even bigger results, and you can trust Jeff and his crew to do what's right because they've proved it time and time again. If you have somebody telling you to replace your system, call Jeff and his crew for a second opinion. They'll walk you through every option and scenario so that way you can make an informed decision. Maybe it's as simple as replacing a part. So give them a call. With Efficient, they offer up to 18 months, same as cash financing on your next unit. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an elite pro partner with Rheem. Go to efficienthvac.net or call 615-784-4424.
We need to start the lava lamp. You're right. This is like wrong.
11:04 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. As we broadcast live from Paul Winkler, Inc. at 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville, something much different is happening down in D.C. The House of Representatives is holding its first hearing on the impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. And it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this. It really will. We're still seeing more info trickle out every single day. Although you wouldn't notice if you watch just Mockingbird mainstream media. Wednesday's cable morning news shows on ABC, NBC, CBS ignored the latest bombshell revelation that Joe Biden in his home address was used to receive 2 bank wires totaling $260K in 2019 from Chinese business partners. The report actually came out like late Tuesday, and it's another link between Joe Biden and all the foreign money wired to his family business from China. But the mainstream Mockingbird media, they don't cover it at all. Weird. You know, this is going to be one of the biggest hurdles of the election of 2024, the mainstream media, and whether or not they're willing to cover this kind of stuff. It doesn't seem like they are willing to cover it. In fact, it seems like they go out of their way to not cover this stuff. And we're seeing things like this every single day. And you know what? It's not surprising. It's not surprising at all, because the media is in the back pocket of the Democrats. So are you shocked that the media doesn't cover the latest wire transfer? Are you going to be shocked if the media the media doesn't cover the impeachment inquiry hearings or any bombshells? I mean, sure, you're going to hear audio coming out of the impeachment inquiry and the hearing, but it's going to be audio of Jamie Raskin saying there's no evidence. It's going to be audio of Democrats saying it's a nothing burger, and then they'll switch over to an expert who agrees with them. It won't be James Comer. It won't be anything like that. They're not going to be playing clips from the 2019 debate where Joe Biden says his son has not made money in terms of China. You're not going to see that kind of stuff on ABC or NBC or CBS. You just won't, unfortunately. But it's a big part of the story. And I often say, you know, at least we don't have the big tech monopoly that we once had. You know, we do have Twitter back, which is nice. You know, you get guys like Elon Musk in charge of Twitter, and it seems like we start to get more information. But you know what? There's still big tech that is on the side of the Democratic establishment, and it's on display every single day. There's a new report out from the Media Research Group. New York Post is reporting on this. Google, believe it or not, has a pro-Joe Biden bias that is algorithm deep. I know, shocking, right? Google has a search and destroy agenda. This is from the New York Post. There is a new revelation in Google that you can't search for other presidential candidates. You just can't. Apparently, Google has been suppressing candidates like Vivek Ramaswamy, Donald Trump, while elevating Joe Biden. It's remarkable, but it's not shocking. It's not. This is from the New York Post. We saw the suppression of the Post laptop story. They talk about the suppression of the laptop story from the New York Post, but there's a new Google. Google's supposed to be a neutral platform, and they enjoy all the legal protections of a public utility. But instead, algorithms are secretly manipulating search rankings to control opinions, whether it's what you buy or what you want to know about a politician. Now, it's hard to pin down Google's bias because the search results, they ebb and flow. But MRC Free Speech America gave it a shot this week by recording Google search results for Republican presidential campaign websites. They did this right before the second GOP debate. Now, if you Google a GOP presidential candidate, lo and behold, only 2 candidates pop up on the first most crucial page of search results, and it is the most crucial page because do you ever really go to page 2 on Google? I do if I'm using Google, but in general, what you see on the first page is what most of your NPC class, your non-player character will just consume and go to. Now, on the first page, when you search for Republican presidential campaign websites, according to the media research group, they say that when you Google it, there's no sign of Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Mike Pence, Tim Scott, or Chris Christie. But there is one candidate who shows up on page 1 of the Republican search results, and that's fringe Democrat Marianne Williamson, whose Real Clear Politics average doesn't even reach 5%. Now, it was a different story when the MRC searched for Democrat presidential campaign websites. Yeah, weird. Williamson, she appeared again with her website slotting in number 2 behind, of course, Joe Biden. But here's the kicker. When you search for Democratic presidential candidate websites, Robert F. Kennedy, nowhere to be seen on the first page, despite the fact that he has 15% support right now. Interesting, right? And RFK Jr.'s support is as high as 25% among some Democrats, according to the latest Rasmussen poll. Now, the office of Hillary Rodham Clinton did appear on Google's first page in 10th place. Elizabeth Warren for Senate in 14th. Ironically, just above Warren was a link to a report on an Iranian website that Google is hiding the websites of Trump and other Biden challengers. I mean, it's a skewed first page, but it does expose something. It exposes that the Democrat Party is scared of Republican candidates. It exposes that Google is in the back pocket of the Democrat Party, and it really shows that they're afraid of RFK Jr. The MRC points out that less than 1% of users ever click past the first page of search results. Less than 1%. If you're not on the first page, you do not exist in Google's world. Now, this is just an analysis snapshot of a moment, but it was tried on September 20th with similar results. This isn't surprising stuff, but it is good to be aware of what's happening. Now, there's other stuff happening. I did mention that, luckily, Twitter isn't in control of the Democrats anymore, or is it? I really don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but Libs of TikTok put out a new video with TPUSA yesterday, and in the video, she teams up with Frontlines, their reporting division, and they confront a mayor in Burbank, California, who got a spanking from a drag queen in front of children. Mayor Spanky, if you are not familiar. Now, they confronted this mayor, and they put the video out on Twitter, and it seemed to be suppressed, and nobody really knew why. Full disclosure, I do find myself in some of these conversations with the guys over at TPUSA, and people were going back and forth like, why aren't we seeing the numbers that we expected to see? Well, Libs of TikTok, Chaya Reichik, she goes down the rabbit hole and starts realizing that there are certain words on Twitter that will instantly demonetize you and essentially shadow ban you and suppress people from finding it. What are those words? Well, let me tell you. Drag queen, porn, groomer, innocent, trans, LGBTQ, police, non-binary. It's really shocking. And I don't put the blame on Elon Musk on this, but it shows how deep that suppression of speech was in Twitter, that these algorithms are still lying well beneath the surface, waiting to be deployed and suppress people's speech. Now, Chaya Reichik of Libs of TikTok, if you go to her Twitter account, Chaya Reichik 10, she's testing out all sorts of words. She's testing out the word white. Well, white's not demonetized. Israel. No, Israel's not demonetized. Christian? No. Police is. It's interesting. And it just shows how deep the corruption of big tech along with the Democrat Party goes. So Google is suppressing Republican candidate presidential websites. President RFK Jr. Twitter, still deep inside the algorithm, has lots of words that will get you instantly demonetized, instantly suppressed. It's interesting. It's really interesting. It's something to keep your eye on because, as we know, big tech absolutely interfered in the last election. If the laptop from hell story from the New York Post wasn't banned, suppressed, and you weren't banned and suppressed for talking about it, we could have a different country today. It was insane. The laptop from hell was one of the biggest stories of all time. Yet we weren't allowed to talk about it. We just weren't. It's crazy. Patrick in Gallatin, you have a comment on defunding media, and you're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's up, Patrick? How are you?
Hi, Chris. You said something that made me think about it. God willing, the Republicans win the next election. We have a Republican president, and God willing, we have a Republican House of Representatives that will do something. Is there any way that we subsidize our national propaganda resources for the Democrats? Is there a way of defunding them?
Well, I mean, I think that we could defund certain aspects of it, like PBS and state-funded media, but I don't know if you could just defund private companies. Maybe take away tax breaks, maybe try to, put the screws to them where you can, but I'm not sure that we could actually just go and defund them.
So it's not enough just to stop watching them, but maybe we could hit them where their pocketbook is and put as much screws to the press as possible on this.
Yeah, and I think that we should. Trump came out and said that he would look at NBC, MSNBC for crimes of treason, and maybe that's the route to go. But it certainly seems like the American media has gone full swing commie propaganda.
It's not a free press anymore.
No,
Chris, thank you very much for your time.
You're absolutely right, man, and thanks for the call, Patrick. I appreciate it. Luckily, though, alternative media is on the rise. Like, this isn't, I don't ever want to be a doomer. You can look at guys like Tucker Carlson and see him get, 300+ million views on his X interview with Donald Trump, just absolutely demolishing the viewership of the first GOP debate, and say, okay, well, we do have some wins to celebrate. But that's why I bring up the latest algorithm that's being revealed, hidden deep below the surface on Twitter. Those words getting you demonetized is wrong. It's supposed to be a free speech platform. Twitter is the new public square. And Mac, I just sent you a clip. Bill O'Reilly sat down with Tucker Carlson, and he talked about just this. how media is changing and how the landscape of media is changing. And Tucker Carlson on Twitter is a huge example of that. This Bill O'Reilly interview with Tucker, I highly suggest you watch. But Bill tells Tucker about the differences between when cable news started and how big it was going to be, and then what the next alternative is. And that's what this sounds like.
When I started cable news, it was nothing, but I knew it was going to be huge. And then I said, you know what's going to be the next huge? Alternative independent media.
Yes.
And I just scampered on over to it. I think there was only a week before I started BillO'Reilly.com. We already had it up and running as a news operation. I took a number of people from Fox with me, good people. And to this day, it's been 6.5 years. It's the most successful independent news agency in the world.
And he's right. Alternative media is stepping up, and smart people like Bill O'Reilly saw it coming. You know, Bill O'Reilly also had this to say about Joe Biden. Mac, I sent you another clip. He says, President Biden, in his opinion, he's not all there.
President Biden, in my opinion, is diminished mentally.
Yes.
Doesn't know what he's really doing from day to day. And you can see that in his public statement.
Pretty evident. Yeah.
Right. The progressives like that because the people who control him inside the White House can tell him anything and he'll do it.
Who are they, by the way?
Well, Klain and Rice were the two in the beginning. And then their assistants have taken over. Names escape me at the man. You'll never see them, ever. But they basically tell Joe what to do and say.
Yeah, and they're hidden behind the curtain. And unfortunately, we will never see them. And unfortunately, that's why I fear that it's going to be Biden 2024. That's why they're suppressing other candidates on Google. That's why they're suppressing words on Twitter, because words are powerful. And Joe Biden isn't. But the people behind the curtain, they certainly are. And it's just something to keep an eye on. We'll keep an eye on it here for you as well. We're broadcasting live from Paul Winkler, Inc., 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville. If you want to come hang out with us, we got snacks, we got gift bags, we got financial advice from Paul. Anything you need, we are here in Goodlettsville. Come see us. It is 11:21 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Traffic problem in Robertson County now where there's some heavy rain in the area. You got a stalled vehicle blocking the right lane, 65 northbound, just north of the Gallatin Cross Plains Highway 25 exit. New developments in the search of a plane crash in Kentucky. Biden impeachment inquiries, first hearing underway. These stories and more at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, Ken Weaver. My name is Chris Hand. We are broadcasting live from Paul Winkler, Inc. And we are down here, 3050 Business Park Circle, Goodlettsville. You are welcome to come join us. We got all sorts of goodies, snacks, gift bags, anything you need. We have it for you. We want you to come see us. We're having a lot of fun. There's been a lot of talk about the Mayor of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and the fact that they gave a standing ovation to a Nazi the other day. Yep. And Trudeau gave his first apology, and he said, but be careful. Be careful for the Russian propaganda, the Russian disinformation. Well, it wasn't a good enough apology. It didn't make any sense. Well, Trudeau, he took another stab at it, and he went and apologized again. And this is what that sounded like.
Situation this put President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation in. It is extremely troubling to think that this egregious error is being politicized by Russia and its supporters to provide false propaganda about what Ukraine is fighting for. Friday's joint session was about what Canada stands for, about our steadfast support of Ukraine's fight against Putin's brutality, lies, and violence. It was a moment to celebrate and acknowledge the sacrifices of Ukrainians as they fight for their democracy, their freedom, their language and culture.
Yeah, so he whiffed again. He absolutely whiffed again. He did try a third apology attempt, and I'm looking for that audio, but, Justin Trudeau, he keeps whiffing on these apologies. What's wrong? What did I say?
That's good. That's good. You slipped that in there. It was nice.
I didn't slip anything. It was just a Freudian slip, I think.
Ah, okay.
Because, he's Castro's kid, right? Here's the one thing that I will say. I think he's too soft to be a Castro. I think it's just a conspiracy theory, right? Fidel Castro was actually a tough guy, right? Am I just misremembering that? Because Justin Trudeau just seems very, very soft. Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. It really is. But he's out there. He's trying to apologize. And it's missing. Every time he goes to apologize for a standing ovation for a Nazi, he misses. And they've made the Speaker of Parliament resign over this, and it just seems like they're scapegoating her when really the only one in Canada that should resign is Justin Trudeau. I have a friend that lives in Canada, and anytime I bring up how bad it is here with Joe Biden, he brings up Justin Trudeau and says, "You have no idea what you're talking about." Things are far worse here in America's hat than anything happening in America. And he may be right. He may be right. And of course, anytime I bring up the Mayor of Canada, I get a slew of texts about how I sound Canadian. It's with no fail. Brian texted and said, "So with that being said, how much money is Canada sending Ukraine?" Well, not as much as we are. Not as much as we are. I'll tell you that much. Jason texted and he said, "Is Justin your president?" Nope, he's not. He's the mayor. Andrew says Chris Hand is Canadian. I'm not Canadian. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But Justin Trudeau, standing ovation for a Nazi, very embarrassing, very embarrassing. But he just whiffs on the apologies and he throws his Speaker of the House under the bus and makes her resign. Classic. I mean, take a little bit of ownership for your mistake. Can he do that? He won't. It's 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the news.
11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still have some scattered showers out there, and some of them are heavy. Looks like we got one moving into downtown Nashville right about now. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now in Kentucky, search teams have found 2 bodies in the search for a plane that crashed last night in Ohio County. There was a pilot, teacher, and a student on board. It was headed to Owensboro from Bowling Green. Right now in the nation's capital, the Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee says there's a mountain of evidence that President Biden has lied to the country when he's claimed not to have any knowledge of involvement in his son and brother's business.
The American people demand accountability for this culture of corruption. They demand to know how these schemes have compromised President Biden and threatened our national security.
Top Democrat on the panel, Jamie Raskin.
The committee has received 12,000 pages of bank records. Here they are, right in front of us, printed double-sided, and not a single page shows a dime going to President Joe Biden.
President Biden recently asked about the impeachment inquiry and the hearing this week. His response was, quote, "Lots of luck." That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement, put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated. Portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return's going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
11:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. We are broadcasting live from Paul Winkler, Inc., 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville. You are welcome to come say hello. Our friend Richie just stopped by. We have had people rolling in all morning. Matt Murphy just rolled in. But, I'm sitting here with Paul, and I've been getting texts all day on the Super Text line. Since we're here with a financial expert, people are saying, ask him about the Federal Reserve. Ask him about fractional reserve banking. And I said, all right. I've never met a rabbit hole I didn't want to jump down. So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, Paul, why is the Federal Reserve?
What is that whole thing? So the way I like to explain it is this. You got $100,000 and you're going to drop it into a bank. You got a reserve requirement. So you've got a whole, remember, It's a Wonderful Life, the best education on banking ever.
Best Christmas movie ever, too.
I love it. I love it because it's, meaning of life. What are you here for?
Amen.
So you take, let's say it's a 10% reserve requirement. You take $10,000, they hold it in the bank, they send out $90,000, the money flows through the economy, and let's say that 80 of it goes back in the bank. They put 80 back in the bank. They take 10% of that, 8,000, they hold it in reserves. Now, the 72 that they've got left over, 80 minus the 8 that they held, it gets sent back out. So let's say 60 of that goes back in the bank. Now you got 6,000 of that's held, 10% of that. Now you got 60 minus the 6 is 54,000. They send that back. And this happens about 7 to 8 times. That is a multiplier effect. So we call it velocity of money. So what is happening, the purpose of this is that so $1 does the job of many dollars in the economy. That's why it's done. So what it does is it makes the economy much, much faster, and there's a lot more going on than if we didn't have such a system.
So explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Is that $1 being loaned out multiple times?
Yeah, it's exactly. So that's why when you had Jimmy Stewart's character going, your money's not in this bank, it's over in Joe's house, it's over in, Jimmy's house or whatever. You know, so that's what they were talking about, is that velocity of money concept. Now, it used to be when we had, this is a fascinating, you go back to the 1800s and you had bank runs like every 10 years. I mean, it was crazy, a lot of bank runs. And what happened is you had gold and you had gold certificates, and people could turn their gold in for dollars. When they were really excited about life and wanted to go buy stuff, they would turn their gold in for dollars because it was hard to go around and buy stuff with gold, bullion, right? Yeah. And with gold bars. So they would turn in for dollars. They would take those dollars and they would spend themselves into oblivion. And you would have a lot of economic growth and economic activity, and the markets would go crazy and everything be going really, really hot. And then all of a sudden some negative piece of information comes out. I'm scared. And people would go and turn in their dollars for gold. That reduced the money supply. When it reduced the money supply, what happened is the economy would go into a crash. And you would have these wild fluctuations. And they said, we can't do this. They used to go to J.P. Morgan. And you get these guys from Washington to go to J.P. Morgan and say, you got to bail us out. We're in trouble. And he'd go, you fellas come here to New York and we'll talk. And that's how, he would make a lot of money doing that. He would be literally like a Federal Reserve Bank.
Okay, so have you heard the Federal Reserve conspiracy theories regarding the Titanic?
Lay it on me.
Okay, so the rumors is that the guys that were opposed to the Federal Reserve were on the Titanic and it was sunk on purpose.
Yeah, okay.
Your thoughts?
Okay, I don't know. I think it was weak metal, but I'm not sure. Untested metal. I don't know. I don't.
You don't partake in rabbit holes?
I've been starting to wear hats lately, but not tin.
Not tin. Well, I've never met a tinfoil hat that I didn't want to put on.
Oh, that's all right.
So all right, you're talking about bank runs now. When you see bank runs happening in California at a couple of those banks,
what's going on?
What's causing that, and what is making that happen? Now, I've read things about letting Chinese nationals invest in our banks and put money in our banks where they could all come in at one time and pull their cash out. It basically makes a bank bust.
Well, and that's literally something that can happen. But the big thing that happened at that particular point at that bank is that you had people putting money in the banks, and the banks will reinvest that money in something, somebody's business, somebody's car loans, whatever. And a lot of where banks put their money are in treasuries. So they'll put it in, and that's how the Fed indirectly controls interest rates, by buying and selling treasuries. So what they can do is, if they want interest rates to go up to slow the economy down, they sell treasuries and they drop the price of treasuries, and that drives interest rates up. Or if vice versa, they want to do the other way, they want to drop interest rates, they buy the bonds off of the banks. When they buy the bonds off the banks have a bunch of cash. They got to do something with it. What do? They lend it out. And when they lend it out, people buy stuff. Well, so what happened is they were buying bonds, but they were buying what are called long duration bonds. And those are bonds, they might have a duration of 8. And that's where a lot of them were. And what that means in English is that if interest rates go up 1%, those bonds drop 8%. If they go up 2%, they drop 16. So you can imagine, now not only do you not have the money in the bank, and somebody comes and says, I want my money back, and you don't just say it's over in Joe's house. It's in bonds that have dropped in value 16%, 24% or whatever. Yeah. And that was the problem. That was what was going on with the Silicon Valley Bank and a lot of the other banks. So that's why you really watch what the FDIC coverage is in the banks. And there's really a cool calculator for your listeners out there where they can go on the internet and look up what FDIC coverage is on their accounts, and how, if you rearrange your account, a lot of people don't realize that if you have a bank account and you add a beneficiary, you can actually increase your FDIC limits on your bank accounts by doing that. Yeah, and ownership, how you own it, and there are calculators that you can do that.
Okay, so let's go down more rabbit holes.
Oh, sure. Okay. Thanks.
The FDIC and FedCoin.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about a
digital currencies?
Yep, and a CBDC.
Gosh, the privacy issues are really hamstringing them regarding that, because a lot of people are worried about privacy issues with digital currencies. It was interesting because you look at China, they did the same thing, right? Yep. What was fascinating about that to me, Chris, is that they came out with this digital currency, and even Chinese citizens who are typically just walk in lockstep. You tell them to do something, they do it, right? Even they were leery of it.
Really?
Which I thought was so interesting.
But they still had to do it.
Well, then not necessarily. They didn't have to do it. No, because it was an optional thing. They had just part of their economy, and they were testing it, is what they were doing over there. So, where that will all land is going to be, that's really where the Fed is they're wringing their hands. How do we do this? Can we do this? And part of the reason they want to do it, which a lot of people don't realize, is instead of having indirect control of interest rates, through buying and selling of bonds, it's literally, people don't realize this. Alan Greenspan was worried that we were going to pay off the federal debt. And people, they don't remember that. Our economy was so hot, tax revenues were so good, they were worried that they were going to pay off the debt, because if you paid off the debt, you didn't have that instrument to control interest rates anymore. Which is, isn't that, it's really, if you ever read his book, it's a fascinating read. He would sit in the bathtub and he would write books, and they were really, really well done. And that was what he was talking about. But, with interest rates, if you could actually have a digital currency, you could directly control interest rates, but you could bypass banking, and banking institutions don't want to be bypassed. So that's another thing that's hamstringing them. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
So would you be in favor of a central banking digital currency?
Oh, gosh. That's, you would have to deal with the privacy issues. You really would, because the thing is, and we say, well, we don't have any privacy as it is. We already have a digital currency. I mean, you look at India, and they have last I looked, it was 90% of their currency is in physical form. Well, it's the flip side in America. Where it's the other way around. So you really look at it and go, gosh, how much privacy do we really have anyway?
Do we already have a digital currency, essentially?
Yeah, so it's, I'm going to remain agnostic on that, but here's the reality of it. It's a thing that causes people to fear and get scared and make investing mistakes. And I don't think it's something that you actually, I loved what one of my CPA friends said. We were talking about this concept, and he goes, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, and that's anytime somebody fears something that's out of their control, it's kind of like the serenity prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Control the things you can,
Yep.
recognize these things you can't control and have the wisdom to know the difference.
Yep, I'm familiar.
And, that was the idea and I thought, that sometimes that's a way of looking at things. I mean, we can study it, but then we end up in anxiety, fearing the future and making all kinds of bad mistakes that were way worse if we didn't.
So why do you think people look at the Federal Reserve and feel that fear and anxiety and worry about that?
There's so many myths about it. The whole idea of the Federal Reserve making a profit or a loss. There was a really good article in the Wall Street Journal about that they really don't care. If they make a profit, it goes back to the Treasury anyway. So the reality of it is that people don't recognize that that's how the Federal Reserve works. And you go, well, if you're going to tax it, because I've heard people say that, and I go, if you're going to tax the profit, it's going back to the Treasury. Who are you hurting? American citizens. I mean, the reality of it is who pays taxes? We talk about that with businesses, right? If you raise taxes on businesses, who pays it? We do, in the form of higher cost of goods. So it's a moot point, but there are a lot of myths about these things out there, and that causes great anxiety and people to have sleepless nights, and we don't need more of that.
No, so when people get nervous about banks, they get nervous about bank runs. Are credit unions safer than your big box bank?
You have insurance on credit unions just like you have on regular banks.
They would be safer or riskier?
I personally don't have anything with a credit union. It's not that I have anything against credit unions personally. It's just a different type of a system.
Interesting. And I got a lot of people texting saying, buy gold, buy gold.
Yeah, well, gold, if you look at the price of gold 100 years ago, you could buy a good men's suit for 100 years ago with an ounce of gold. Today, you could buy a good men's suit for an ounce of gold. It had absolutely no return after inflation over 100 years. And I would look at it and go, well, gosh, $1 in U.S. large companies is like $14,000. The same dollar in small companies is almost $40,000. And I go, I think that was better.
Yeah.
After inflation, you had, because what do I own when I own companies? Who are the most successful people in the world? Business owners. What do you own when you own stocks? You own businesses. I think I'm going to go with what they do, being a business owner. I think it is, historically been a much better play than buying gold that goes up and down in value. Literally we had an increase in the supply of gold when they had the rain in California because they found stores of gold. And I've often said if the price of gold went high enough, people would dig down to the bottom of the ocean to get more of it and would increase the supply and drop the price. I don't think that's a good idea.
No, I wouldn't recommend it. It's 11:47 on Super Talk 98.7 WTN. Paul Winkler. We are broadcasting live from Paul Winkler Inc. Paul's a smart guy. If you need financial advice, come see us. We're broadcasting live all day here today. Matt Murphy's coming up next. He'll be broadcasting till 3 o'clock. 3050 Business Park Circle is the address for your GPS. We're in Goodlettsville. We got snacks, we got drinks, we got gift bags, and Paul has the best financial advice in the business. So come hang out with us if you want to have a conversation with Paul, myself, Matt Murphy. It is 11:48 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 1154, broadcasting live from Paul Winkler, Inc., 3050 Business Park Circle in Goodlettsville. Joined by the one and only Matt Murphy. Hello, sir.
It's pretty cool being in a real studio. And then isn't this nice?
It's really fancy.
What's going on, Hand?
I feel like I'm going to break something.
I know. You better be careful. Hey, keep your water away from that table. Got to watch out. Real deal around here.
All right, talk to me about the debate last night.
I don't know. So I was listening to the debate. I was driving back from my hometown in Thompson, Georgia. So I was listening. I don't know how it could have been worse watching. I don't know if it was better or worse. I don't know how it could have been worse. It was awful. We do this for a living, right? So it's kind of an occupational hazard that we sit in front of our television, sit in front of a radio, and watch this thing. And on several occasions, I said, I'm turning this off. Just because it was that disappointing. It was that disturbing.
It was bad.
It was bad. And I blame, in part, the moderators. I certainly blame the people on the stage.
The moderators were killing me all night. Like, I understand that, like, you're partnering with Univision and you get somebody with a thick accent. That's cool. My captions couldn't keep up with the female moderator from Univision. So not only could I not understand what her question was, my captions couldn't understand what the question was, and then the people being asked the question couldn't understand what the question was.
Well, and I'm all about having a Latino voice on the stage. That's all well and good.
I think it's Latinx.
With the X, with the Latinx, whatever it is. I'm all about having that voice on the stage. How about a conservative one? Because you clearly did not, and it's a Republican debate, and we conservatives, libertarians, and the like want to know, where these candidates stand on these variety of issues. And she seemed to be reading out of the MSNBC playbook as opposed to the conservative playbook, which, I mean, it's a party primary, so one would think that they would be focused that way. I don't understand why. What's his name? Charles. He's on Fox Business all the time. Who's Charles Payne? Why don't you have Charles Payne on the stage asking actual business questions? I didn't hear one of the moderators bring up the word Bidenomics once. One of the candidates did, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but not one of the moderators. Your Fox Business channel. Why are you not talking about business matters?
It was a missed opportunity. Fox is the big loser. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it has to be intentional. One would presume it's intentional. And I was embarrassed. I've always had great respect for Dana Perino and still do, but I was embarrassed for her at nonsense. And look, when my takeaway after listening to the debate was DeSantis was the winner because I heard him least. That's a problem.
He didn't talk until like 15 minutes into the debate.
Well, and I have respect for a guy that agreed to the rules and is going to abide by the rules. Here's what I would do if I was moderating a debate. I would say, forget this. If they mention you, you get a chance to respond. All you're doing is giving candidates an opening to violate the rules. Everyone's going to get asked the same number of questions. Everyone has a minute to respond. You'll hear the ding. You have 10 seconds to finish up your thought. And if you don't, your mic goes dead. That's it.
I thought Burgum made the most of his opportunities.
Yeah, he came off as so rude, though.
You thought so? I thought he came off as aggressive, but I thought he needed to be because he wasn't going to get the airtime otherwise.
That's true. I mean, and those guys on the fringes feel that way, right? They feel like, I've got to get in there, I've got to engage. What I don't understand is who told, well, two things. One, this idea that that you get to respond to a question that wasn't asked to you just because you say you really need to.
Yeah.
That's not the way it works.
No.
Those aren't the rules, Mike Pence. Nobody cares about you. But Pence is obviously one of those that thinks he's got to get in there and engage to get some of those numbers up. I like Burgum. Is that his name?
Yep.
I don't even know his name.
Burgum.
I like him. But, we know where this is heading.
Well, and I said, they make the comments, oh, is this a VP debate? I don't think any of them are VP quality. But I could see a Burgum being a VP for a DeSantis type candidate down the road.
Yeah, sure. But he has to understand. For me, there is no more value in these debates unless and until you get some of these candidates like the Christians of the world. And I know you're right. Your right hand, he is entertainment galore. But get him off the stage, boil it down to about 4 or 5 candidates, including the obvious man in the lead, Donald Trump.
Yeah, but he has no benefit from being there.
Nah, I don't blame him for not being there.
Matt Murphy's next, live from Paul Winkler, Inc. in Goodlettsville. Come see us at Super Talk 99.7 WTN.